Good afternoon. Let's try putting the blower on. Make it look pretty. This protective tape has been on here far too long. A little cleaning, getting any adhesive off. Okay. Good deal. Little anti-seize. After all, I am the anti-seize king. Now, I've talked about these studs before, but in case you haven't seen the video, these are special studs. They're meant to shear. If you've watched any NHRA races lately, you've seen John Force blow up not one, not two, not three, but 4 cars. And the blower didn't explode, it just raised up and went off to the side, didn't create a bunch of shrapnel to kill people. So I'm going to put 2 studs in here just to line things up. This is a very nice reusable gasket, so we'll stick that on there. I only put 2 studs in there to line the blower up when I sit it on there because it's kind of heavy. Getting up. I don't have to go to the gym, I do this. There's that. And then we'll put 2 more studs in. Now, unfortunately, I'll be a little bit of a spoiler here. This blower actually has to come off again. I wish I was doing it for the last time. But it does have to come off again. And I will explain why in a different video. But in order to do that part, I need the blower on so that I can turn this motor over to do that part. Now, with these studs, what you do is take them down and then back them off a half a turn so they're not bottomed out. Because aluminum tends to expand a lot. You don't want to bind the studs up. I'm only going to put 4 in because that's all I need. Hold the blower in place and turn the motor over. The way you turn the motor over is you put the belt on and then use a 1/2 inch drive ratchet to turn the blower, which turns the crank, which turns the motor over. Alright, so they're not quite bottomed out. I'm not going to put any anti-seize on these nuts because I'm just going to go down finger tight. The project has taken a real bad turn, and it's almost assured now that I'm not going to make the first race. But we'll just keep plugging along. I may go to the race just to be with the guys again, but I don't think I'll be racing. Now, these are real important. Some people don't like to put these in. They think it restricts the airflow. I think that's hoopla. And I will put a photo in here as to why you want to do this. This is a screen, and what it does is keeps anything from being sucked into the blower. Like going down the track and having pebbles come in the front, or in my case, I had one of the nuts come off the butterflies on the front of the bird catcher, and the screen saved it from going down into the block. This is the second piece of the blower restraint system. The first piece are the studs. What this does is allow the blower to raise up a little bit but not come off the engine, so when you're going down the track it doesn't fall off and go underneath the wheel and cause you to flip over or anything like that. These straps get fastened down on the side of the block. This has to be recertified. Now, one screen is probably enough. Two is probably better, so we'll put a second screen in here. And then we're going to put the bird catcher on top of it. Like so. Now, I have the nuts, the bolts down inside here, and I showed you this modification in a different video. What it allows me to do is to take this and go right down through the top and get into the Allen head, the cap screw that's inside, and very easily allow me to fasten it. Okay. Now I got a couple nice cap screws that go over these studs that are here in the back. Makes it look pretty. No reason why it can't look pretty. There we go. Now, everybody's seen the Cal Custom look-alike bird catcher that you can put on top of your carburetor and have it poke out of your hood and make it look like you got a blower. And that's all fake. This actually is part of the air induction system. It's real important that it's sealed. And I'm going to come back in a little bit and talk about that. These are not, even though they look like they're closed, they're not actually closed. There's a very small gap at the bottom, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And this operates the K valve over here, which is what supplies fuel. So this is kind of like the carburetor. This is kind of like the carburetor to a mechanically injected, fuel injected engine. So it's important that we plug these holes up, otherwise it's a massive air leak. So we plug that air leak up. And I'm not going to tighten these up because it's going to have to come off again. And this rear injector is actually, its purpose, although it does put fuel into the blower, its purpose is to keep the rear bearing in the blower cool. Okay. Now, kind of the reason why I put this on is so I can talk about the piece that goes here, and I'm going to get to that. But the reason I really put this on is so that I can turn the motor over. And the reason I can turn the motor over is because if I put this belt on, tighten it up. I can put a 1/2-inch drive down into this blower here. And I can pull the motor over. And I'm going to need to do that to talk about the video after this video. So let me go get some parts and I'll be right back. So now I'm going to talk about a topic that I'm not as educated in as I should be. And I have a good friend who's a mentor who's teaching me this stuff. His name is Steve Walzak, and I really appreciate him. He puts up with phone. I call him 10, 12 times a day. And he puts up with me. I wish he was still here in New York. He's down in Arizona. Anyway, what we're talking about today now is air-fuel mixture ratio. How you go exactly the right speed and in the right time to index race. Air-fuel mixture ratio is extremely important. Weather is extremely important. So the first big thing that contributes to air-fuel mixture ratio is the fuel pump. This is a fuel pump right there. It's direct driven off the cam, and the amount of fuel it produces is directly proportional to the RPM of the engine. The faster the engine goes, the more fuel it pumps in very precise amounts. So what you have to do is send that pump off, and they do a flow on it, and they tell you exactly how much it pumps. The guy that I sent this to is this guy right here, Fuel Injection Enterprises. And he sends you a book. He actually sends you a book. You know, it's not a lot of pages, but it's very precise information on what that pump should do, what your tune-up should be. Is that focusing? What your tune-up should be, where you should be at. And the start of all that is idling. What you should idle at. Now he said this thing is real pretty, and a lot of hot rodders, well, not a lot, but some hot rodders put this on as an air cleaner, and there's an air cleaner inside, and they hook it up to their carburetor linkage, and the butterflies open up when they put the foot on the throttle, and it all looks real neat. In this case, it's a very important piece of how much air goes into this engine. So much so that the initial set, he's saying the butterfly should be open at 8/1000ths of an inch. Well, if I take a 9/1000 feeler gauge, it will just slide in to those butterflies. Now this is being held shut by the spring, and I can slide that 9/1000 inch feeler gauge in there. But it's a good place to start. Open those up a little bit, and now you're putting too much air in at idle and you're running lean. and very, very little bit. So it looks like these are closed, but they're really not. It's controlling the amount of air that's going into this engine. Another thing that controls the fuel that goes into the engine is this K-valve right here. And there's a pill that goes in there that determines how much fuel goes in there. But this K-valve has a valve in it that opens and closes to determine how much fuel goes into the injectors and is directly linked to the butterflies. So everybody has heard a blower motor that porpoises, and it sounds real neat. It does sound good. But when you're drag racing and you're trying to pull up to the starting line, that porpoising engine makes it very hard to move forward inches at a time to get staged correctly. So you'd really like this engine to run very smooth. And the way you get it to run smooth is by getting the air-fuel mixture ratio correct at idle. So Spud Miller gives you some suggestions on where you should start to try to get that. He's saying these butterflies should be open to 8/1000ths of an inch, and I'm getting 9/1000ths of an inch right now. So that should mean that this thing is a little bit lean. He's saying that this K-valve should flow at 100 pounds, 70%. The leak down should be 70%. So if we look at that, and my compressor cycles on and off, and it turns on at 90 pounds. So we got to make sure that we're at 100 pounds. So the leak down is done at 100 pounds, and we want to see 70% leakage. And we don't have 70% leakage. We've got 68%. So what we normally would do, this is held shut by the spring here. So this shaft is held shut, that's at 9/1000ths of an inch. What we want to do is have a little more fuel going in here so we get to 70%. And the way you do that with a standard linkage is you take this off right here, and I have this all loosened up so I can do this. And we turn this, I'm turning it half a flat. So you wouldn't think that'd make that much difference. But now let's see where we're at. And now we've got 80%. So even if I pull it down, if I hold this down, it's still above 70%. So this adjustment is not fine enough. So what do? Well, there's a guy out there that makes a device called QuickFast. It's a really neat device. It's called QuickFast. And what it allows you to do is to make these adjustments in a very fine way. So if we take this linkage off, and we don't drop any screws, and we put this linkage in, and all we're really doing is changing the distance between the butterflies and where this valve is for the amount of fuel that goes into the engine. This comes up solid against the stop. So that stays against the stop, and what we're doing is moving this up and down in very small increments to richen or lean this thing out. So I haven't changed anything else. Okay, it's seated. And what we have is exactly 70% what we were looking for. Now with this, I was either below or above. I could not make the adjustment to get 70%. Now just for the grins of it, I'm gonna go 1 click richer. That's 1 click richer, and now we are at 72. If I go 2 clicks leaner, now we're at 68. So what this little device allows you to do, Rich, is to make very fine increments and get your leak down exactly where you want it, so that you can get this engine so it does not porpoise. It'll run nice and smooth. It sounds neat to have it porpoise, but for racing, it's not the way to go. So this is a neat device. The guy is a really nice guy. I'll put a link to him down in the comment. I'll give you his phone number. And I don't know if he has a website or not, but if he does, I'll put it down there. So this device allows me to adjust the fuel to get the air-fuel mixture exactly correct. I hope this wasn't boring. Have a good day. Oh, by the way, if you enjoyed the video, it was informative, you found it interesting, although this may not have been interesting because it was boring, please click the like and subscribe. The name of this device is Quick Fast.